What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao, bringing you the latest news this Sunday evening. A former Taiwanese soldier has died fighting in Ukraine against Russia. The volunteer was reportedly killed in combat on Friday, making him the second Taiwanese fighter to die in the conflict. The soldier was a Kaohsiung resident and reportedly a former member of Taiwan's special forces. Taiwan's foreign ministry confirmed the death, but has not commented on the details. Another Taiwanese volunteer fighter, Jonathan Zeng, was killed in combat in Ukraine in 2022. It's estimated that there are 6 Taiwanese volunteers currently fighting in Ukraine. Taiwan's defense ministry is reporting 37 Chinese military aircraft operating around the country on Sunday morning. 35 of those aircraft breached the country's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This is not Taiwan's sovereign airspace, but the military uses this zone as a defensive buffer. Taiwan's military says the Chinese planes were conducting a long-range flight into the Western Pacific. Taiwan deployed its own aircraft and missile defense systems to monitor the activity. Now, Taiwan deals with Chinese military aircraft around its borders on an almost daily basis, and the country has been looking to boost its air defense. That includes a recent purchase of the NASAMS air defense system from the U.S. For more on this, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Ali Sorsa from the Rabdan Security and Defense Institute.
So, Ali, what does NASAMS add to Taiwan's overall defense, and why is this weapon system significant?
NASAMS is actually a really important system to add to Taiwan's multi-layered integrated air defense. What is really important to understand as a starting point is that the war in Ukraine has really highlighted the sort of renaissance, if you will, of short and medium-range air defense systems. And this is exactly because of this demand comes from the realization that cruise missiles, one-way attack drones, and these smaller munitions are really an important part of the offense. So being able to defeat these kinds of capabilities, not just the high-end ballistic missiles, is really important.
Well, Taiwan already has other air defense systems like the Patriot 2, the Patriot 3, the domestically made Tiankong. Is there anything different that NASAMS add to it, or how will this weapon be used?
So we have, like you mentioned, the Patriot and Tiankong 2, Tiankong 3 systems that are the high-end, defending against long-range air threats, defending against incoming tactical ballistic missiles. But they may not be the most effective or economical means to target cruise missiles, for example, or these one-way attack drones that we now see is a really major part of the threat picture. The Tianqian-2 system, that is a very similar, locally designed and manufactured system to the NASAMS. So Taiwan is building already a similar capability, for example, in Ukraine, and what we've seen in Iran's attacks in April and in October this year against Israel, that there's a very high likelihood that adversary would start with overwhelming saturation attack. So having this high capacity to defeat multiple targets at the same time is very much needed, and this is the kind of capabilities then required as well.
You talk a lot about the war in Ukraine. In terms of air defense, what are some of the lessons that Taiwan can learn from how Ukraine is defending itself?
So it's not really just the missile systems and the various air defense artillery and all of this, but that's also the resilience in terms of passive defenses. So how can we survive an attack that we have to expect that some of these missiles do come through the defenses? They leak through. So this is just a fact that there will be those leakers. So we need to make sure that we can survive. We can continue fighting regardless. And this then adds to these capability requirements that they're not always the most headline-grabbing technological solutions. They might be these passive defense things like camouflage, hardening, tactical adaptations, spreading capabilities wider, keeping them constantly on the move. These are the solutions at the tactical operational level that come into it, as well as then electronic warfare.
That was Ali Sorsa from the Rabdan Security and Defense Institute. South Korea says it's conducted joint military exercises with the U.S. and Japan using long-range bombers. This is the second time the three countries have conducted aerial drills together, and it comes just days after North Korea test-fired a new kind of long-range missile. The U.S. deployed a B-1 bomber in a show of solidarity with its allies. Sunday's drill is meant to practice responding to North Korean threats. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris has slammed comments made by the U.S. House Speaker, suggesting his party may repeal the $280 billion CHIPS Act if they take control of Congress.
We've talked repeatedly about their intention to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, now to get rid of the CHIPS Act. It is my plan and intention to continue to invest in American manufacturing and doing the work of investing in American industries, including our industries of the future. That is the way we are going to win the competition with China for the 21st century, and that is the kind of leadership that America deserves in their president.
Harris was responding to Speaker Mike Johnson's statement that his Republican Party would likely try to repeal the law if they win a legislative majority in this week's election. Johnson has since walked back those comments, saying that a repeal is not on the agenda. The 2022 law authorized massive funding to boost research and manufacture of semiconductors inside the United States. That includes up to $6.6 billion in direct funding for a new plant in the state of Arizona by Taiwanese chip giant TSMC. The U.S. presidential and congressional elections will be held November 5th. At least 200 people are dead and dozens are still missing in Spain's Valencia region after the worst flash floods in 3 decades. Harold Hughes reports.
The search for survivors continues after historic floods hit Spain's southern and eastern regions, leaving hundreds of people dead and dozens missing. Meteorologists say a year's worth of rain fell in just 8 hours, flooding homes, collapsing bridges, and triggering landslides that swept through cities, sending cars, trees, and debris down the streets. Days later, emergency workers are still fighting to rescue people who are trapped and clear streets of the thick mud and debris.
Las dificultades sobre todo es la cantidad de coches y lo aplastado que están. Luego, a última hora el agua es muy sucia, nos cuesta mucho aspirarla. Hay que estar constantemente limpiando las motobombas y es un trabajo también de conforme sale el tractor ir limpiándole porque están pinchando sobre todo. Tenemos muchos vehículos pesados que están pinchando.
Thousands of soldiers have been sent to the hardest hit regions. And Spain's prime minister has announced the deployment of an additional 10,000 soldiers and police officers to step up rescue efforts and aid distribution.
Que sabemos que la ayuda está tardando en llegar a muchos puntos, que aún hay casas y garajes bloqueados, municipios anegados y mucha gente desvalida.
Meanwhile, thousands of volunteers have traveled to the area to hand out food and water, clean the streets, and support people affected by the devastation.
Pues nada, el sufrimiento de familias que tienen la casa llena de barro, de todo. Horrible. Y entonces estamos ayudando y mucha gente, estoy maravillada con la gente joven, mucha gente joven que son maravillosos, todos viniendo con agua, viniendo con todo, a limpiar, a arreglar, a ayudar en lo que sea.
¿La rodeo en cadena? Sí.
This has been called Spain's worst peacetime disaster in modern history. The search for survivors is ongoing, and the death toll expected to rise. With the amount of damage, the road to recovery will be long, but thousands of people join every day to help with rescue and aid, bringing a small sense of hope to the areas of devastation. Klein Wang and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Warming temperatures may be having an effect on the rate of premature births. That's according to doctors here in Taiwan. A research team from Taipei Medical University looked at 11 years of data on Taipei's weather and birth rates. They found that for every 1 degree Celsius temperature increase, the risk of premature birth increased by 6%. But other doctors say, although they found a link between the two, the relationship is not causal and more research is needed.
够说因为气温上升造成妈妈的早产这句话，我只能说气温的上升的时候，我们同时观察到妈妈可能会早产，可能有各种的原因，因为她不舒服，因为我们现在是在暖化的状态，环境的污染、空气的污染，大家的身体健康没有像以前那么好的情况下，是会有可能造成妈妈的早产的。
Doctors add that other factors, such as later marriages and pregnancies, must be taken into account as well. Scientists say that life on Earth could not exist without fungus, yet they remain one of Mother Nature's least understood life forms. But that may change if a new proposal at the UN's COP16 climate summit is adopted. Bryn Thomas explains.
Foragers are scouring the forests of the U.S. state of Washington, looking for one of nature's less understood life forms.
I'm pretty sure I've heard of it, it's called a cauliflower mushroom. Looks like a cauliflower. I heard it's pretty edible. I've never eaten it before. But I took a knee in the forest to look at something else, and I turned around and it was right there. It was very, very cool.
Take a hike anywhere and you'll find mushrooms, but ask yourself what you really know about them. And apart from being sometimes deadly, but always delicious, it probably ain't much. And you're not alone. Mycologists, scientists that study mushrooms or fungi, reckon most people don't know they're not even plants. They point out that unlike plants or flora, they don't photosynthesize their food and reproduce with spores.
We know about 98% of the vertebrates that are on the planet. We know about 85% of plants that exist on the planet. We know about 20% of invertebrates. So if we take percentages, we know relatively the least amount of fungal biodiversity.
Mycologists have only described around 150,000 species of fungi, just 6% of the at least 2.5 million thought to exist. Fungi evolved earlier than plants, creating the conditions that allowed vegetation to move from the sea to the land.
So basically, without fungi, the world would not exist. Plants would not exist. We need plants for oxygen. So the world would not exist in its current state.
Mycologists say this general ignorance among the public is a problem because of a vital role fungi play in sustaining life.
Fungi are essential for all terrestrial ecosystems. They have all kinds of ecosystem function. They associate with plant roots, and plants can't exist without them. Without fungi, plants can't grow.
Now a proposal submitted to the UN's Convention on Biological Diversity being held in Colombia, COP16 could help. Most existing conservation frameworks focus on animals and plants, so fungi only receive less direct protection. This new proposal aims to elevate fungi's status to ensure they receive the same level of attention and protection. It calls for fungi to be classified as a separate category, meaning alongside flora and fauna, we may soon have funga. The distinction will open up avenues for conservation by allowing for legislation, policies, and agreement aimed specifically at funga. And experts believe this proposal and the increased awareness it brings could impact the future of the planet.
It's so important because we may not even have flora and fauna without fungi. We really need to start working together as scientists too, and becoming more multidisciplinary in the way that we look at ecology and we look at biodiversity.
As they wait for a decision from COP16, these foragers continue their search of Washington's lush forests. Their appreciation of mushrooms reflects the growing scientific understanding of the crucial role one of nature's least understood life forms play in protecting our ecosystems.
This would be my first time actually going on a mushroom walk like this, and I've learned so much, and it was so interesting to see the different species.
Scott Huang and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us here on What's Up Taiwan. Finally, check out this Day of the Dead parade in Mexico with people dressed up for the annual holiday. I'm Eric Gao, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
A pivotal election that will impact Taiwan and the world. Will it be President Harris or President Trump?
People, we are moving forward.
Make America great again.
I'm in the United States in the final stretch.
TaiwanPlus has you covered with exclusive reports from California to Texas and Washington to Florida. We'll be there on election night as America decides. Only on TaiwanPlus.